Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Fan the Flames Coaching. I am so excited to be joined with Anne-Marie Simak. Anne-Marie is a transformational coach. She is a speaker and she is a stylist too. And I'm really excited to talk to her about how she's created the life for herself that she's created. You know, here at Fan the Flames, we're all about how can people create the lives they want to create? How can they turn those little sparks of ideas into flames and fires of reality for themselves? So we're going to be delving into Anne-Marie's story a little bit just to find out about, you know, who is she and how did she enable this to take place? Anne-Marie, it's great to have you here with us.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, really.
So I know you as a coach. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of my first sort of interaction with you,
Yeah.
where it was as a coach. But very quickly, this part of you that was the stylist
Yeah.
emerged. And I'm curious, did the stylist come before or after the coaching training happened?
Yeah. So it happened before. So what I was working with before I did my coaching was working in the fashion industry in London for 19 years before I started, before I trained as a coach, and doing styling, also makeup and hair. So that's how I started in this industry in London. I was working for this time, and that's how it all started, and yeah.
So you're working in fashion,
Yeah.
and then what? You decide to become a coach? You had a coach?
Well,
How did that bit kick in?
yeah. So in what I'm doing, as working with people, you meet a lot of people on the way when you work, and you become really close to a person, especially when you do makeup for someone.
Mm.
You touch their faces, you're very close, and you start up really interesting conversations with these people. But you're not there, as in, you're not there to, that's not your job to converse, so to speak.
Mm.
You're there to, make them, look and feel good. Um, but I really like these deep conversations with people. And I thought for a long time before I did the coaching diploma, I thought, it would be so nice to get back to that conversation again, to
Mm.
come back to it. But it wasn't really, my place, or it wasn't really possible, obviously, because of my work. So I think that kind of sparked the idea to become a coach, because I was, that was one part of it. The other part was my own self-development as well.
Mm.
I started 10 years ago. I did therapy for a couple of years, just exploring myself,
Yeah.
exploring, who I was, what I'm doing here on this earth, things like that. And that was how it all started from the beginning. Like, my own awareness kind of started to, come out, or,
Mm.
awareness about myself and the world around me. So the self-development, it led from one to another. And eventually I guess also I was on a spiritual journey too. So it was like
Mm.
self-development, spiritual journey, which took me to travel quite a lot in 2015 and 16. And, through the traveling, you meet a lot of people, you meet so many people, and the conversations become really deep. And, the whole journey as well was very interesting. So actually becoming a coach, I got the sort of epiphany on a trip in South America, in Patagonia.
Mm.
I don't know where it came from. It was just because I was meeting constantly new people, and I also was in a transition that my work wasn't, there was something missing in my work. the sort of something more deeper than just the outside. And so actually on that trip in November 2017, 2016, I actually Googled, so before, like a week before coming back to London, I Googled, transformational coaching or coaching. And then I found the school Animas, where I trained later on I think I started in April.
Okay.
The year later, yeah.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? So you went through a phase of kind of self-discovery.
Yes.
So you're working with others, and you're doing their makeup and their styling, but it's a job. It's not part of something. It's like you do this bit of it, and you're also going to yourself, I feel like there's more here. There's other conversations that could be had, but that's not what I do. I just do this bit. And then you kind of go on this journey, the self-development journey. And in there, I guess the idea of so how can I have more conversations or longer conversations with people? And how can I make that part of what I do? And I know that people listening will be having those thoughts about, there's this thing that I like to do. There's this thing that I enjoy. But how do I then shift that from something that I like to a career or a lifestyle? And so what was that journey like for you? Was it one where you just went, yeah, I'm going to do it, and it was easy, or there's struggle or challenges?
No, I think it's just a progression of yourself. It's just a progression. It's not like, when I started my makeup styling career, it was, I thought I would do that all my life. But I think for people, well, for me anyway, naturally it comes, after some period, 19 years doing something, I've always gone after my passion, like I want to do something that I'm passionate about. And if you don't feel that spark, like if there's something missing after some time, that's when you start exploring other things. I was exploring, before the coaching, I was exploring other things. Like that, especially in 2016, I had, I was thinking completely leaving, leaving my job, because there was just, the passion was kind of not there as it was from the beginning. And I really believe that you have to have the passion. If you actually want to succeed at something, you have to have that passion. And I already, in my career, I've done everything that I really wanted to do. I set a goal and I wanted to, and I did all these things. I was doing, fashion shows in London Fashion Week. I've been traveling with my work to the States. I've done, fashion magazines, commercials, music videos, just everything. And it's been such a great journey. But I think it was just a natural step to take to go on the next level for me. Actually, maybe something that is actually more me. Something that's something also that I can give people more sort of internally as well. Not just the external bit, but also the internal bit.
Okay, so we'll talk a bit about that kind of external, internal in a moment. But I just really wanted to reflect on that idea there of, there's this passion, this desire, this drive, this thing you want to do. How did you allow yourself or give yourself permission to do that? Because I recognize that a lot of people will have dreams, have ideas, have passions, but something kind of holds them back. So what was it that in you that allowed you to go, yeah, I'm just going to do this anyway?
I've always been like that. Like moving to London. I think I don't care about what people think. In this sense. There are other things that not all, I'm not absolutely not perfect. I do, and I'm working on that. But in this particular thing, when it comes to my career, I don't think about what other people think about it. and I'm not asking permission,
Yeah.
from my friends, from my family. So I think that is what actually I just take the step to do it.
I think that's so important, because we can spend our lives being driven by what other people think of us, or our kind of thought about what other people think.
Yes.
And we can maneuver and twist ourselves into these awkward shapes because we're trying to, I guess, please the world around us, as opposed to going, but what do I want? What's my desire?
Yeah.
And how do I go about making that happen? And then from that place, we can go, right, now I can help everybody else, but from a place where I feel satisfied in my life.
Yeah. And it's it also, if you listen to other people, it will restrict you. You won't be able, I think everyone has that inner voice inside, what is it that I need, what is it that I want in my life? Like you have, you know that you can, like somewhere deep down what you want in life, or I think some people do anyway, but then it's about, really exploring that bit, actually going deeper into that and actually do it, make the action to do it. And I think if for some reason you don't do it, if you listen to other people, or then I think you can feel there's something in you that it basically restricts you, and you don't feel happy
Yeah.
inside. So you almost need to get it out. Sorry, yeah.
This it reminds me of a few things here. So one of the things is that we all have this essence inside, this essence, this desire, passion or purpose.
Yeah.
And I guess part of our jobs as human beings is to go and explore what that might be, to try things, to do things, to see what's the thing that really sparks me, or sets me alight, and then go, right, how can I continue to do this? And I think the other thing that was really interesting what you were saying is that we can listen to others to gain their advice, their support, their information, but if we listen to their doubts and their fears and we take them on board ourselves, then it's going to hold us back. So there's always that subtle difference between, is somebody sharing a useful piece of information, some data that we need to pay attention to, or are they sharing their doubts and fears about what might be possible? And do we hold on to that, or do we go, okay, I hear you, but I'm going to give it a try anyway and see what happens?
Yeah. Often people project their fear on us. Because because there's a lot of uncertainty. Don't get me wrong. You enter somewhere where you don't know actually what's going to happen, but you have to have the drive, and you have to have the faith that this will, and also that drive, faith, and passion, I think, to actually go on and do it, take that step.
I love that. Drive, faith, and passion. It's like a magic trinity that we can hold on to when we're looking at something. Because you talked about your sort of spiritual journey. You kind of touched on it a little bit there. And I'm just curious, when you think about a spiritual journey, what did that mean for you?
I think what it meant for me, I think what it is that, I grew up in my parents didn't believe in anything, and I don't know. The reason why it started, because I guess it, after a failed relationship, or a few, I started to really look into what, and also after the therapy, looking into, because it didn't, it doesn't stop your self-development, like how, you are in what do you call it? Like you are in a pattern. I think most people have patterns, and when something is not, you're constantly repeating and repeating, you start I started to really dig into, what, like I started to, like I went on YouTube and, just typed in whatever, like how can I change something? And I
Yeah.
think just by coincidence, it just came up some spiritual stuff and I started listening to it. And that's how I'm like, I started listening to Eckhart Tolle really early on, Sadhguru really early on. And from there, it has progressed and progressed. So I really believe now, from being completely not believing in anything, a God or anything higher than us, I've gone to really believing that there is definitely something bigger than us here. And so a lot of the stuff that I was kind of teaching myself through YouTube, mainly actually from YouTube, listening, and just maybe reading as well, was when I went traveling. It kind of, when you take yourself out from your own reality, and there is, you don't have anything, like you don't have any ground anymore. You don't have any, you basically take yourself out from from your reality, and you come to a really new environment. You that's when you see, things almost happen for a reason. You meet people for a reason. You meet, it's really hard to explain, but that's how the traveling, actually, everything I had read and, listened to, it just became reality, like it was practical, like from just doing something theoretical and reading about it to, actually experiencing that when I was traveling. That's why I always recommend people to travel, especially on your own. That's when things, because you're so like here and now. When you're at home and you're working, it's much more difficult. I mean, it's a practice, so you can take that to home as well. It's just at that time I hadn't really practiced it. So, and that's how it sort of became. So then after that, like I was on that journey already, and now I'm like, really studying even like faith.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very interesting.
I love that. I love this idea that, you have a question and you ask that question out to the world and to Google and YouTube, and it starts to provide answers, and then you just kind of keep searching and you keep exploring. And I know a friend of mine, Ray Martin, he went traveling on his own, and he was going away for, I think it was 6 months. He had thought about it, and then he spent like 15 years traveling, because there was just so much learning when you, like you said, when you travel on your own. It's like we all need to go on these little solo journeys, and that might be for a week, and it might be for 10 years, but these little solo journeys that allow us that time and space, I guess, to be with ourselves.
Yes, 100%.
Be with ourselves in different environments. So we start to go, well, how do I figure this out? How do I relate to what's happening in and around me? And how do I be with this? And then, like you said, you then bring it home. It reminds me of, I don't really do yoga, but it reminds me of what people talk about when they explore yoga, and this idea that you do yoga on the mat and then you've got to take it off the mat with you into life.
Yes.
And I guess it's the same with meditation. It's not just about that moment when you sit, it's about how that relates to you in your everyday beingness.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about your journey to coaching, and how there was you were into sort of fashion beforehand, and then there was this kind of joining these conversations together and using coaching sort of as a tool to do that. And you kind of also touched on this idea of whether it's how you look on the outside that impacts the inside, or how you feel on the inside that impacts how you look on the outside. And share. I've got some thoughts around that, but I'd love to hear sort of your thoughts on how you work with people in and around that.
Okay, yeah. Mm, I guess there was also like a gradual, understanding of that. When I was working with people, you could just see, like on the outside. So first, when I started, in for these 18, 19 years, I mean, I still have, I still work in it, but not, coaching now is my full-time, really full-time job.
Mm.
But I saw how people became so happy just to seeing themselves with, like the makeup, the hair, the clothes, and just the confidence on the just by looking in the mirror, the transformation there
Mm.
was, so I mean, and I experienced it for so long, such a long time. So the and also with myself as well, like I can tell you just the story of, even though I was working in the industry, I wasn't always confident and feeling like what I was wearing, that
Mm.
it was what I wanted to wear, what I was, I didn't feel often myself in my clothes. I
I
was
think that's,
choosing because there's so many styles. There's so many styles that, when you go into a shop, what do I choose? There's so many different styles, and you're like, oh my God, and I'm a person, I like quite a lot of different styles. So I was just picking and picking different like clothes, and but I was, I came home and often, I put something on, was wearing it, and then it stayed in my wardrobe. I didn't use it.
mm.
So even if I knew how to put together my clothes, it was still, it just didn't feel me. And I think the journey, like as we spoke about my journey, my self-development journey, the more I got to know myself, the more I started to also choose clothes that kind of reflected my personality.
Mm.
And I wasn't aware of this, that this was happening. Wasn't until I started to really think, what kind of coach do I want to be? What, because I'm interested in so many different areas of coaching. I think relationship coaching is very interesting. Yeah, just in general, like understanding people's, like how like their journey, like we talked
Mm.
about, how to change, your life. For example, I had thought to become even like a lifestyle coach, how to change, because to change, to move a country, and like I've moved now twice. I moved to, from Sweden to London, and then from London to Spain now. So but then it just came natural to me to actually, I explore that with actually a business coach,
Mm.
how, like what sort of coach I want to be. And when I started talking about the, my own transformation, I just realized with the clothes and the inside and the outside, I realized that there is something in there that I could actually help people with that, to put together obviously the coaching, the way we coach, but at the same time also, combine that with my knowledge in fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I think it's really interesting, that idea that we can put an outfit together, but it doesn't feel right when we put it on.
Yeah.
And to then explore, well, how are we feeling on the inside, and how does what we wear reflect that? Because sometimes, I see people wearing stuff and you kind of go, oh, they're not in a great mood today. They've woken up and they've gone, I'm going to shroud myself and hide myself from the world. And other times you see people, you're like, yeah, they're really here, and they're showing you that they're alive and they're in the space by what they wear.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's really unconscious. We're not paying any thought to the relationship between what we're putting on, how that feels, and how we feel.
Mm.
I think it's really interesting when we start to pay attention to that to notice, well, what feels good for me and what helps my internal express itself in an external way through what I wear. And so how do you then how do you do this, right? So you meet a Robert, and I'm kind of going, yes, I'm not sure if I'm happy with my style or my wardrobe or what's going on with me. Do you have like a set process that you work with people with, or is it about who they are?
Yeah, so the beginning, like the first really session, is about exploring you, exploring who you are, for me to understand you, but also just for you to, just to get, even though I work with coaches as well, I obviously, as coaches, we are doing a lot of self-development and we know a lot about ourselves. It's always good to kind of come back to that exploration, who we are. And then, and then we look at, then it's the practical side to it, really also look into the wardrobe. So to look into the wardrobe and see how that does it translate with the person who you are? How does, so we do look at our values and how our values are represented in the wardrobe. Do they reflect our wardrobe? So that's kind of the first thing. And then it's more of a practical things like body shape, what body shape you have. Then we also look at the colors and the psychology behind colors, and also how to put colors together. And we also explore, because like we look at the wardrobe and then things, we do some changes together. So they have a style mood board, I let them kind of, because often what we think, like what we have in our wardrobe might not be, so when you put together a style wardrobe, like a styling sort of mood board, you kind of pick out maybe things that you don't have in your wardrobe. That happens a lot, like with clients, that they pick out even colors that they like that they don't have in the wardrobe. So it's more of an awareness of actually, what is it that, like, why don't I have these colors in my wardrobe? And actually, like, I was picking that out for my style board.
That's interesting, isn't it? So when we start to go to who are we, what are our values, what are we about, what would our mood board look like? And then we start to notice that what we're choosing isn't what we have. So somewhere along the line, we've bought stuff that doesn't reflect us. And I guess there's all sorts of reasons around why we buy what we buy, whether it's the advertising, whether it's, society and fitting into social norms and all of that. But when we start to really tune into, but who am I and how does what I wear speak that? Then we're into a kind of a different level of kind of self-awareness that matches that external internal piece.
And also, like, how do people perceive us? Because it's like what we wear is like a message as well to the outside. It's a projection as well too. So as a coach, is that what you want to project to your clients, to your audience? How do you want to how do you want to project yourself with your clothes? So it's like an internal, but then also an external projection to others.
And what I love about this is that self-development piece, that looking inside piece, means that we find a match between these two things. Because sometimes people go, this is what I want the world to see me as, so I'm going to dress as that, but I don't feel that isn't who I am. And so we find that there's a little discord when we meet them. We kind of go, well, they dress like this, but they don't feel like that. And I guess part of your work is going, well, let's make sure that there's a balance here and that there's a harmony in how you dress.
Yeah. And also it makes you something as well, like it makes you feel good. I mean, I think maybe you mentioned that, but it makes you feel good to wear something, that to wear something that is, feels you, but also
Mm.
you have to also think like, I mean, when you see a person who has, for example, I use color a lot, I love using color. And because when I see a person on the street and they wear color and they look really put together, I like smile and I'm like,
Mm.
I sometimes even go up to them like, oh, you look really nice. So you get it, like it's a combination of, you do it, obviously you do it for yourself,
Yeah.
how you feel, but also how other people, like it makes other people happy too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you feed of that, happiness from other people, like they like might even comment, that you look nice and you're like, yeah, thank you, like, because, it made you feel so good putting, that on what you wear. So
And I I'm laughing there about that, how things feel, because I'm aware that sometimes I'll be getting dressed and I'll go, do you know what? I don't feel those jeans today, or I don't feel that top today. It doesn't quite feel right, and I might get changed 3 or 4
yeah,
times,
yeah.
and I go, oh
I
no,
do the same.
I've landed. I know what I'm wearing now.
I do the same thing, because sometimes you feel like, I mean, even for this sort of interview, I was like, what should I wear? And also, I know, like on camera, it's actually better not to wear too many patterns.
Mm.
But it depends on the light, but so I was like, and I have lots of patterns. I love patterns. So I just thought, okay, I will, maybe wear a bit more formal, like I have a white shirt, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a purple sort of jacket, blazer. So so I do the same. I kind of change as well. It's what sort of mood, and also it's a mood enhancer. I think clothes are a
Mm.
mood enhancer. So if you feel a bit like, maybe if you might feel a little bit tired in the morning, it's actually, for me anyway, it feels really good to put something, even more something more colorful on. So you
Yeah.
feel, it makes you feel good, like looking in your mirror, and yeah, like it brightens you up, like, yeah. So
Just it's making me think about this idea of, there's a whole kind of, I guess, a ritual that one might create, where you wake up in the morning and you kind of get in tune with yourself through your meditation, or your running, or your movement, and then you might move your body to kind of get a sense of, well, how is that physical feeling, and tune into, so where am I at today, what's that about, and then go, right, so what else do I want to tune into, and then open the wardrobe and go, yeah, that's going to enable that piece to
mhm,
happen. So it's this kind of, we're making choices about the state that we put ourselves into, and we enable for ourselves, and we're using our clothes to enhance that, or adapt that,
mm,
or grow that, depending on what that sensation is that we're feeling. So we're
mhm,
making these little choices
mhm,
throughout the day to kind of get to where we want to be.
absolutely. I think also, and the environment is a huge thing. So if you, depending on where you go and who you're going to meet, and the weather, of course the weather is important, but like, if you have a meeting with, business people, you want to look smarter,
Mm.
smarter, but still like yourself. This is the thing where you're talking about the balance, is that you want to feel yourself. If you're not as, if you don't have smart sort of clothing, and you're going to go to like a corporate sort of meeting somewhere, for your job, you do still need to, like, if you like colors, get a blazer which is, like a whole suit maybe, which is, like green or red, and
Yeah.
use those. And also think like accessories. Always, that is something I do with my clients, is the accessories that we use. think, I mean, men can also use accessories, but obviously women have more to choose from. But you can use accessories to actually put, accessories for me are something that, how should I explain it? They are your sort of, they're helping you to get that, to show who you are with the accessories. Because if you have just a dress, let's say you just have a dress, that dress doesn't really say anything, but that's when you start doing the styling and putting together things, that's how you come out as like you can actually use it and work with that, with accessories to show who you are.
Feels like the accessories are like the little accents to who we are, the little kind of gateways into our personality. And I think what I love about, I mean, maybe this has existed throughout all time, but one of the things I love about now is that anybody can wear anything and it's kind of okay. Once upon a time, they were, I don't know if this is true, but it felt like there were rules about what we wore. And now it feels like there are no rules. It's about what you want to wear to express yourself. And then it's about, I guess, with your work, tuning into, so how does that make me feel? What's my style palette or my color palette? What works best with my tonality or my shape? And then using that to enhance and then allow myself to express myself.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed as well, there's this belief as well, like, I mean, there's a lot of sort of limiting beliefs that are coming up in the sessions too. That, I shouldn't be wearing something, and it often comes from, something that either happened, in the past, that you restrict yourself and you kind of don't want to really wear that particular thing. And what often happens is that they start exploring that, whatever they didn't want to wear, exploring how it would feel like to actually wear something different. Because I've like, I grew up in a family where my mom was a seamstress, so she she was sewing clothes and fabrics and she was sewing clothes to me and herself. She didn't have it as a job, but her dad was a tailor, and so I sort of grew up with it. But many people didn't grow up with in a family where clothing, that it was something like relevant or important in the family. And I think that is where sometimes the limiting beliefs can come from, that you just don't know as well how to, like if you see something, like I've seen, my mom had lots of accessories and she still looks, she still walks, like looks great. And that's where I have it from as well. So I think that is something to think about as well, is your background, your family background, how it was.
And as you were talking there about the sort of the environment that we grow up in and the choices that we have, is what it makes me think about that idea of trying different things. If we haven't had the experience of trying lots of different things, it's a bit like, trying lots of different journeys and going into lots of different places. It's that kind of, how do we test this out, try it out to see what really works for us? It's a bit like, you moved from Sweden to London, then from London to Spain. It's like you're testing out, where does this feel right for me, and exploring and trying. And I guess with a lot of people, when we think about those sparks and those flames and the things that they want to do, that potential, we can only realize it. I say we can only, and I'm sure people will challenge me on the only, but there's something about we can only really sort of find out what's possible through experiencing it, through trying it, through that exploration, and noticing what does fit for me, whether it's clothing, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's career. By testing it out, we get a sense of what that is, and then employing somebody like yourself that has the ability to draw that from us and to help us think about it and feel about it a little bit more, I think can be really, really useful.
Yeah. I think it should be fun. You know, clothes should be fun, and you can really take it to really like creatively. You can really do so much with your sort of external, and it's, for me, it's fun, it's play, it's like we're playing, you know, it's a playtime. And I still explore things, you know, like how would it feel to actually wear this? And I think I do it more now as well because it's my job. I do it more now, and it's actually really fun to explore different sides of yourself. Like who do I want to be? Like, you are, obviously we are changing constantly, you know, like who we were like 5 years ago. It's not the same. It's like you evolve and change, and you might change jobs and or like, you know, go to a different country, have a different lifestyle. So with that, your the way you dress will change too. So
I love that idea of trying things on and experimenting. It's a little bit like, you know, if you're a coach, you might experiment with the niche that you want to choose, or you might experiment with your brand. You can experiment with your clothing and see what you like. And I would imagine that sometimes we surprise ourselves by, we go, wait, this actually feels and looks good, and I would never have chosen it if I hadn't experimented.
yeah, totally, 100%. It is when you get to that stage, because in the beginning, you know, it's like, you know, it's like steps. When you get to that step, the highest step, it's very freeing. It's very like the feeling of freedom to actually be able to, you know, want to explore things. I was I don't know if you know, do you know Harry Styles? And I find him very like interesting, and I admire him as a man, that he's exploring this very sort of very feminine clothing, and he does it so well because it's like a contrast. He's very sort of handsome, manly, has a manly face, and the contrast that with that is, you know, the women's clothes. And I mean, he does it like, he still looks manly, so it's just really interesting, like what you can play with. And I'm not saying like it's not for everyone, for sure, because I mean, he's obviously a pop rock star, and you know, I can see it's much obviously allowed for someone like him to do it, because I think, yeah, but it's still, you know, something to think about, you know, like you can use it to, you know, to that exploration of yourself.
And I think it goes back to something you said right at the beginning, was, you know, it's by giving yourself permission and not listening to what everybody else says, we create a freedom for ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we're able to be free, and we're able to play, and we're able to experiment, then we can find our way. We can navigate through our trial and error, as it were, as we move through, and kind of listen to ourselves through that deep work that we do. Because, you know, you've done that deep work that allows you to go, well, how do I want to express myself, and what is the me that's showing up? And I guess what you're doing with people is a kind of deep work that looks at who they are on the inside and how they want to express that on the outside.
And I'm still on that journey. I think I think this is what's so interesting with my work, is I actually want now to even push more on my own like, you know, not limiting beliefs, but what, maybe, you know, maybe it's like certain things that hold, you know, I'm also feeling comfortable with certain clothes. So I'm like kicking, you know, because I'm doing these videos and, you know, showing other people. So, and it just gives me that I can now explore as well certain
Mm.
things that maybe I wouldn't have done before. And yeah, so I'm still evolving as well. And I think it's going to be like that. I think that's how it's always going to be. And also, like, when you age, that is something that comes up, obviously, like when you age, like, I think especially women asking, what is age appropriate clothing and things like that, like, and it makes me obviously think as well but for me it has been very natural, sort of.
Mm.
I used to wear really, but I still actually do sometimes. I wear, short sort of dresses and skirt, even though I'm 50 now. But, like,
Shock
yeah,
horror.
yeah, but, like, it's something, but definitely less. I don't wear it in the daytime. I wear it if I go out, like if I would go out in a club. And I don't know, like, how I will feel in a year's time or 2 years, So it really depends. I think there is no really, I think, age. For me, it just has come very natural,
Yeah.
like organic way of dressing, like how my dress sense has, changed and progressed.
Yeah. I think there's something so lovely there to recognize that it's an ongoing experience. It isn't that we find a style or a way of being and we stop. It's like we're forever exploring, ever experimenting, ever uncovering new layers to ourselves and thinking, okay, so what do I do with this? And what's that about? And okay, so now I'm at this age. What does that mean, if it means anything? And how do I turn that on its head and challenge the status quo? So I know that we could talk about clothes forever. I could definitely talk about clothes for absolutely ever. If somebody wants to work with you, they want to explore your work or to get to know you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well.
Sure.
I have a website too, but I think it would be easiest to connect there, just to send me a direct message. And just a friend's request on Facebook. I'm constantly posting, and yeah.
Brilliant. So people can reach out, connect with you,
Yeah.
explore, and what's next for you?
Yeah. So I'm doing a challenge actually in January, which is kind of the reason why it's in January, because people, but I'm already just gonna start talking about it more and more. It's just clearing out your wardrobe challenge, which like, it's something I do on regular basis, but I think a lot of people have so much clothes in their wardrobe they don't use, and it might be, for some people it might be even, feel anxiety to even just to go to your wardrobe and just clear it, and not even knowing, what is it that I should be keeping, what should I throw away, or give away to charity. I don't throw clothes away unless they're like broken. But yeah, so that is the next thing for me. It's
Awesome.
to have that challenge. So anyone who wants to join, they can go on my website, or just add me on Facebook.
Brilliant.
And that's the next thing. And then there's stuff happening next year. I'm exploring having a big event, but you just need to, like, come and
Okay.
follow.
We get
Add
it.
me
We'll get it.
yeah.
We'll come and follow you and stay tuned and find out what's happening. Anne-Marie, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing this space with you. And here at Fan the Flames, we believe everybody has that spark. They all have that potential. They all have that ability to grow themselves into those roaring fires. And it's just about having those conversations, about experimenting, about looking within and exploring what is it that you want to do, and giving yourself the permission to go ahead and do it. Anne-Marie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you, Robert, for having me. Thank you.